Okay, so how are you doing? Great, good. So questions, and it's great to hear that Larry, you and David and Kai are working as a three. That's great.
Yes, I don't see Kai on the chat right now, but
He
maybe
seems
he
to have
could make it.
disappeared. Yeah, maybe he had to go. So
I sent
yeah,
him an email to see if he logged out by mistake.
Yeah, we can
yes,
fill him
yes,
in though.
yeah. Do that. Send him a message in case he wants to log in again. Yeah. Alice, have you got someone you're working with? You're
Yeah,
certainly working with Sheila,
yeah.
aren't you?
So I'm exchanging with Sheila. I think I'm just much quicker than her and maybe more ambitious to do, and more into teaching. And I managed to finish chapter 4 and almost chapter 6 now. So, and I found out, maybe it's just a hint for everybody, as you're working with anything, you don't have to do the chapters in order. So I tried to teach breathing, so I read the breathing chapter and did the questionnaire, and that works fine for me
Great.
to get it more into the flow of life. And
Yes.
so yeah, sometimes it's good to do it one after another, but so I decided I want to read it anyway, so and do it now.
Well, that's okay too, isn't it? Because I mean, you've got the overview at this point. So if you've got a, if you're working your way through chapter 2 and you've got a pupil like Anadora who needs to talk about breathing, is yes, skip to the breathing chapter and do that one.
And I'm not regretting having not done it as I read it the first time, because the reading it's so different understanding.
Yeah, yeah. Now I've got one person who's actually attempting the certification process on the first reading, and I'm letting her do it, but I'm aware she's just not got the breadth that you guys have got. Yes, I mean, I sort of don't want to dampen her enthusiasm because it's there right now, but so I don't want to say don't do it, but you guys have just got a volume of knowledge that she doesn't have yet. I think she'll stay.
And again, to have it now with your Delsart explorations, put it in the historical content of Alexander and rereading the book and finding connections again.
That's nice.
To this, yeah.
So has anyone got any questions from the material that's come up that they're going, actually, what do you mean there? Or questions that you went, why is that the answer? David?
Well, I just had a general question of there was a sheet you put out at one point for the certification. It said you want to do 4 lessons with you, and is that sheet still valid, or has that been modified? Or
It's did I say lessons or did I say assessment sessions? Because
I'm not sure what the word was.
Yeah, so the assessment sessions they need to happen. So when you've done each section, so you're working through 2 to 6 at the moment, and when you've completed chapter 6, get in touch with me and we do a one-on-one session in which I just sort of it's a sort of very informal sort of exam, but the people who've done it will tell you it's not scary, and I don't grill you horribly. So, but it's just, it's nothing like actually getting one-to-one with somebody and, asking you to go through one of the anatomy lines and take me through an exercise and look at me and tell me what I'm doing wrong and how you'd advise me, and just sort of some teaching things and some theory things. But I'm not going to ask you the abstruse points. Let's be very clear. So, don't feel you have to mug up all the sort of the rather some of the things in the questionnaires are, shall we say, a bit tangential, a bit sort of theory for theory's sake. It's just a sort of little extra nugget. They're not all going to. You probably know what I mean there, do you? You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. You did mention that there was a possibility of maybe taking this, doing these exams 2 at a time, you know, with someone else. I don't know if I think you mentioned that to Kai, but I'm not sure how that would work actually.
No, I don't think it would work. I think I sort of have a feeling we had a muddled conversation about that, but I don't think it would work. I think, you know, what I'm very aware of in the working online is that usually I haven't had one-on-one time with people. So, and one can just pick up things on one-on-one time. You know, we've had, you know, a bit of one-on-one time within sessions, but it's different to having an hour with somebody. So that's why I want to do it this way. That's
Perhaps
okay.
I misunderstood. Maybe it was Hannes who mentioned that as being could that be an option? But
yeah. Yes, I
makes
don't
sense
think
to
it
do
would work. I don't think it would work because, you know, I think it would be good to, you know, have that one-on-one just to be able to focus. What do you understand? What do you know, how would you teach this? And
But what's new for me now is that you suggest to do it in the part. So there's 3 parts of the book,
yes,
and to do it in these 3 parts.
yes, except to divide, we've divided that middle part of the book into 2 because otherwise it's 8 chapters in one go. So it's chapters 7 to 10 and then chapters 11 to 14, so that we do each section.
Yeah.
And then,
so I can choose to finish one of these, and then I mail you. Let's have a date.
Yes, absolutely. And Leslie's the first one to have done that, not surprisingly, academic that she is, and she's got her date booked for a couple of weeks' time for part 1. So yeah,
so I'm very close to this one too.
Yes, exactly. So as soon as you feel close, you know, get in touch and we'll sort a date out, and then we'll go through it, and then
that's good because it's not overwhelming to try to know everything at one time.
Exactly, and that's why I've broken part 2 of the book into 2 sections as well, because to try and do all those 8 chapters at once would just be completely overwhelming, whereas to do, you know, 7 to 10 in one go and then 11 to 14 in one go, I think is much easier. And Suzanne's done it, as I say, so far, and she found it fine. She's the first who did it. Kai.
Yes, I find that my understanding is changing all the time. So I'm quite happy that I can choose this because I'm reading through this thing and then I find, perhaps I can only focus on one thing at a time. But I thought I had understood this, and now I don't even know what she's talking about. I'm too stupid to be an Alexander Technique teacher. I've known this all years long, but now I have the 2nd, 3rd, or 100th confirmation.
It's like when one rediscovers freeing the neck all over again and wonders, have I ever freed my neck before? What on earth have I been doing for the last 40 years? It's I think we all go there. It's going up the spiral, isn't it, of learning, you know? And you think you understand something, you do understand something, and then you go around the spiral again and you go, hang on, what was that about? And it's a good process. So embrace it. Yeah, if that sounds okay. Larry.
It was good for me to hear what you said about the various theoretical aspects of these beginning chapters, because I mean the first time through I don't think I think I saw the words, these are, you know, debatable, these are all developing, and I don't think I really even read it clearly enough to understand what these I mean this time through I've read, you know, the various models like tensegrity and all that stuff. I think I could explain them, but I don't use them in my own teaching necessarily, but I guess we'll just see if when my quiz when my evaluation comes, whether I understand it to the degree that you're looking for.
And again, I think what's needed is the basic understanding of it, isn't it? I mean, if you were to give me your understanding of tensegrity right now, what would that be?
Sort of, and this would be, I assume you mean the biological application of tensegrity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sort of a balancing of opposing forces, not in the sort of older antagonistic muscle view of how anatomists looked at how we were put together, but that there is a balance of pulls, if you will, throughout the body to help maintain our shape. In a large part, it seems like there's the fascia is involved, which is kind of a new take on it, when is before we made a thought of this term purely in terms of muscle and bone.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Is that good enough?
It is actually. It is. Yes. Yes. You don't need to know the precise engineering about rods and compression structures and elastic structures. I mean, you can add that one in if you like, but you've got a basic understanding there that you can explain to a pupil. It's not just boom, 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 boom. It's something more holistic and more, I'm not putting words on it because it's a tensegrity structure. It's
right. That responds to gravity in a way that that the model doesn't have to.
Yes, exactly. That it doesn't have to respond to gravity. It's got that expanding in all directions capacity. Kai.
Yes, well, I found it very helpful that in your book you connected this to the fascia, because if I look at this model that you have in your book, and Ben has a similar thing as a toy, then this thing in itself cannot be a model for a moving bipedal or whatever. Yeah, it would be some kind of a seaweed or tolling around on the ground. And if you look up the word tensegrity and look at YouTube videos, you always have these constructions where the whole thing is holding itself in relation to gravity. But the model that you have in your book and that I saw with Ben is holding itself without connection to gravity. And
Yes.
so, and if I had to say, well, okay, this whole organism with legs and arms is working in a tensegrity way, I would think this cannot be true. But if I think that you have a kind of a hull inside yourself, a very twisted and very chaotic kind of everything, every muscle, every fiber is kind of connected with this tissue, with this fascia, and which is a flexible structure, then I can relate to this word tensegrity. Otherwise, I couldn't.
That's why I define 3 aspects of the structural form of the human, because I started off by listening to the tensegrity people who are based around Stephen Levine, and they absolutely worship the ground he walks on. I think he's died now, I can't remember. But, they believe everything he says, and they say the whole body can be modeled on a tensegrity structure. Well, it can't, for exactly the reason that you say. A diatom in the sea. Does everyone know what a diatom is? They're those tiny little plants that are just single cell, and they're in the most marvelous shapes, and they're spheres. And they just float around in the sea, and they can float any way up and probably roll around. And they are a pure tensegrity structure. You don't need anything else if you're a diatom. And I think there's most evidence for a single cell being a tensegrity structure, because it has a cytoskeleton within it, a tiny little microskeleton within the cell that again supports it, and a cell can morph around and compress and expand and work any way up. And by the time you get to the whole of us, it doesn't work, except that you've got this fascial continuity and you can model different bits. But at that point, it's a model. It's only giving a reference frame for how, say, the shoulder girdle works, that the shoulder girdle is because the shoulder girdle isn't a great strong, like a chair. It's literally just held together with fascial elements, and yet you can do a handstand. And if you look at the size of the shoulder girdle, of the shoulder joint, and the attachment here, which is the only attachment into the spine, that shouldn't be possible if it was just through the bones. So, and yet, you know, and a gymnast, for instance, swinging around a bar, you know, 1 minute they're doing a handstand, so there's a load through that shoulder girdle, and the next moment they've swung underneath it, so that it's a tensile load, and then there's everything in between, and that shoulder can cope with these incredibly fast changing forces. Now, there's no biomechanical model that can allow that. The tensegrity model can handle it because it works any way up. So when you get to the shoulder, it really works. But as you say, but one of the things Patrick Johnson points out is that tensegrity models always look like weird alien things, whereas biomechanics has managed to create robots that look like humans and that will walk and jump and hop and balance. And they've gone a long way to that. So he says we don't need tensegrity, but I still think he's missing something because of the gymnast and this, you know, being able to swing any way up and these fast changing forces across a joint, which tensegrity can handle. So that's the theoretical argument. But that's why we need biomechanics to explain the whole body's reaction to gravity and forces and friction but we also need tensegrity to explain this, you know, how each bit holds up. Hannes.
I just want to say what I got from this, knowing models, not to the ground, but knowing they exist and knowing people thinking about this a lot. It's so before, so the Alexander world was very close to me. So with their own jargon, and there was lots in me, which I realize now, lots of thought about us versus them. And so this is, I really like for you really open to, let's see what these people think about it. And so just to open and to communicate. And I think this is a very important thing, not individual, but as a profession, as a group of Alexander people, to change these. We have such an incredible work, but nobody understands it.
Yeah, no, we've rather set ourselves apart like an 18th century Jewish sect.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
It's not good. It's not healthy, and we die.
It's not good. So I tried it. It's not a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, this is why I wanted to burst the whole thing open, and there are people, of course, who don't like it. But you know, we've got to desanctify it, haven't we?
Yeah, and this is so for me. This is how I can see how much do I know. So I don't know to understand everything, and I don't know to be in the illusion. If I understand a model perfectly, I can explain how the Alexander technique works. This is not what it is about, but I have to know enough to be up to date. So like, yeah, I think everybody has to know that the view on racism has changed over the years, and the next generation does it absolutely differently. If I don't know this evolution in the society, I'm not up to date, and I should know, and everybody should know.
Yeah, Same and we've got to be able to talk to a doctor or a physio or an academic and be able to explain, at least in some form, what we do. And so, this is why I'm giving you little tests on this. So that you can say, this is the deep front line, and actually name it and say, this is what we're working with, and this is why it brings in the core muscles, and this is what the thoracolumbar fascia is, and this is how it relates to tensegrity and biomechanics and Tai Chi, and
and knowing the wrong models.
Knowing the models, that's right.
The wrong ones.
The wrong ones, yes.
Which doesn't work. Very important.
Yeah. Kai.
Well, as far as there is one quote that Alexander wasn't religious about his own work, because he said, if I find something better, I'll throw it away. Yeah, so I'm not here to present a theory and a fixed world model, but I'm searching for a way of getting rid of things that I notice are not making my life any better, so to say.
Yes. No, it's never the founder that holds on to things like this. It's the followers. The founder is usually way ahead. They've actually left the followers way behind. The followers are going, we've got to hold this. I told you the great story about Steiner crossing the courtyard, Rudolf Steiner. And he got a young student of his work with him. And his shoelace came undone and he bent down to tie it up. And when he stood up again, the student said, why did you turn your back on me to tie your shoelace? And Steiner answered, because if you'd watched me do it, you would have then said, this is how Rudolf Steiner ties his shoelaces, and you would have all wanted to tie your shoelaces like that forevermore. So, I mean, he just saw through it. Yeah. Larry, you had a question there?
Oh, I mean, and this stuff's always changing. Like right now, on Facebook, Alexander groups, I'm looking at, somebody brought up polyvagal theory, and a lot of people are writing in, this has been completely debunked. We need to move on from polyvagal theory. I mean, so it's always changing.
Polyvagal theory is a model. Like all these things, they're models. The science, there's the parts that it's debunked. They're not quite sure about the evolutionary thing. They found, I don't know, reptiles have myelinated, and it's the evolutionary theory side of it doesn't quite hold together apparently. And there's a couple of other, but it's broadsword. Polyvagal is all wrong. No, it isn't. Polyvagal is 99% right. It's very useful to be able to show a client the ladder and say, this is what's happening. I've been doing some much deeper emotional clearing myself recently and getting into deep old stuff. And as it begins to clear, my body breaks out in a sweat. Now, that's never happened before, but that's my system climbing down the ladder. It's going from frozen to a sympathetic state, and the whole, shaking, and there's the sympathy, and there's the sweating coming up. And if I can stay with it, it comes down to the bottom of the ladder and to calm. And there's that polyvagal theory. If you've got to come down the ladder, that's useful. So it may or may not hold total watertight as a scientific theory. There will be holes in it. But as a model, it works. Same with left and right brain. As a model, it works. It's useful with clients. But to be very clear that it's a model, not a piece of hard and fast science. So I made the distinction in the book between theory, between scientific fact and speculation, but I didn't do the third one, which is there's a difference between a theory, between a scientific fact and a model. And again, apparently, the anatomy trains, they are not scientifically proved. There's argument about whether these fascial elements really can take the forces. And some people say they can, and some people say they can't. But as a model, it works, and it's used by Olympic teams. Now, Olympic teams are not going to use a model that doesn't work. So, the big sports therapist guy, the sports, science guys are picking up on it. This is a model that works. So that's what to be clear about on this sort of thing. Does that make sense?
And waiting for the scientific proof and just working with which is proved, it would be so boring. So I mean,
Yeah.
all the thinkers, they think ahead of the scientific
Yes.
evidence
Yes.
and waiting for somebody else to prove it. Yeah, like Einstein, Galileo, and everybody. So
Yeah. No, they were coming up with, the great astrophysicists. Who was it? Einstein, who predicted black holes how many decades before they got found? And these things have been speculated as theories, as models, and then years later they get proved. Yeah, no, and again, the science team, they're doing a great job, Tim and Rajal and Patrick, of saying, this is the science, but we have to be ahead of that. And Peter Grunwald and Katie Bowman are both absolutely straight about the fact that they are way ahead of the science, and so is Thomas Myers, and so am I. Let's say what the science is, but let's run with the models, because the models are what actually gives us something to work with.
and it's also feeding the science which somebody to do research on.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. The model gives the basis that you can then do a scientific experiment on.
to
I
prove
tried
it.
saying that to Rajal, that there was a whole load of stuff in my book that could be, she didn't want to hear. Rajal doesn't want to hear about my book. Don't know why, but there we go. That's her stuff. So, yeah. Not sure whether the science teams really liked, I mean, I'm talking off the record here, but whether they like the fact that I produced my book at the same time as they came out with their science model. But their science model is great. It's really great. Some people, of course, have debunked it and said it doesn't work. You know, that's the way it goes. So, but they're doing a great job. I have no quarrel with them. They're doing a great job of saying this is what has been put in a box so far.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it will remind me to say this is a useful working model to
Yeah.
explore this stuff
Yeah.
rather than, I mean, just prefacing.
Yes. Yes.
Because
And that's
sometimes
what one needs to say. Yeah.
because sometimes you can just start mentioning right brain, left brain to somebody, and they immediately will shut off because they don't want to hear anymore because they don't believe it, or they're unwilling to use it as a model without even hearing me go into how both parts of the brain are still working in all this situation, but they're processing the information differently, which is what you taught me.
Absolutely, exactly. And the point McGilchrist makes is that it is about how the brain is processing. It's not about this is the right side and this is the left side in that old model of, you know, arty-farty versus logic. It is about processing. And Kai.
Yes, exactly. One doesn't need these terms, right, left brain, stuff like this. You could say there are different approaches, different ways of thinking, different ways of interpreting or situations or dealing with situations. And so it's, I mean, you can be right out of the wrong reasons. So, you know, the effect was right, but the reason was wrong. Anyhow, the effect is good. And the question is of what is one doing for what is one working? And if the general goal is to say we want to gain more freedom and a better coordination, whatever that in special case might mean, then we are not really interested in fixed results. And I find that I can take out something of anything if I'm in the right mood and benefit from it. So if I were to say, okay, this is a, let's say, fixed result or a scientific truth, this wouldn't help me for the process that I'm in. So it's different play fields, so to say.
So
We're
yes,
not.
it is.
It's not a competition against science.
Yeah, yeah. It is a play field, and I think that's a nice way of putting it. And the fact of right left brain is that spatial awareness is entirely lateralized to the right brain. There is no spatial awareness on the left brain. And that's, you know, if one works with that difference alone, that's left and right brain for you. The left brain cannot conceive a whole. It only conceives in bits, and the right side of the brain conceives the whole picture. So, you know, there is fact there. Because it is fact that spatial awareness is lateralized to the right and it isn't on the left.
So somebody who's had a stroke or that side of the brain that does spatial awareness is immobilized, hasn't received blood or whatever, and it's not working.
I don't
Their
know.
spatial relations, their ability to do that is gone
McGilchrist is
until
talking
they.
about that.
Sorry?
Yes.
McGilchrist is writing about that he has also his ideas from experience as a neuroscientist or a doctor, and observing people with having a stroke or any injuring in any part of the body, and he's describing like a stroke, one arm is paralyzed, and so you're talking about this handicap of having a paralyzed arm, and the one say it's very sad, oh yeah, my arm, I will never use it again, and the one where the right brain is still in charge can say there's no problem, I'm fine, and then you say but your arm is paralyzed, and you say yeah, it's paralyzed, I can see it, but it's not my arm, or a very strange relation or sense of self in relation to the arm which is paralyzed very differently from the person with so I read something like that.
Mm.
And this is it's so interesting. I mean, it's just fun, and this is what I try, is to have fun and to finding an experience with a model. And also with McGilchrist, I learned from Valentin, he said that McGilchrist says the right brain can integrate the tasks of the left brain, but not the other way around. That's why it's a master and the misery. And I can really have this experience that it's not possible to be stuck into the tunnel and get the sense of space and the connection to the world. It's not possible. So I have to do a total switch into the other world. But when I'm connected to the space and to the world, I can see the details in the whole picture. That's possible, but not the other way around.
That's beautifully put, really nicely put. Yeah, yeah. And isn't that part of why left and right brain is important for our work? That we can get that overall, we can start getting that integrative look at the body. Yeah.
And also for teaching, using this model is just to teach, to show what I got from it, and leave it open if they take it or not.
Well, one of my pupils really got the left right brain thing, and she'd go into, oh, but I don't know why that, and then she, oh yeah, that's my left brain talking, isn't it? she really was able to reframe her faulty sensory perception and her her erroneous beliefs in terms of that's my left brain talking. That's fantastic. I'm thinking, why don't I get this one in all my pupils? But they don't all pick up on it in the same way. But yes, I mean, there's masses of those sort of neurological things in McGilchrist's book. Same as when you get to chapter 15, if you read Goodell and Milner, again, they've got various people, one of whom only has the dorsal pathway and one of whom only has the ventral pathway. And they describe who can do which seeing task. And it's amazing, which one can actually pick up the teacup and which one can't pick up the teacup unless they've seen it. I can't remember how it works because I didn't bother to take in the details, but it makes interesting reading. But it's that sort of data that they've used in order to build up the model of what's happened. And at the end of the day, it is a model. It's, they've got that data behind it, but they can only say it's a model. Yeah. Okay, Kai, and then we must.
I think you should get paid for the time that you're spending with us. And I'm just paying this Miss Goldie Challenge Club meeting once a month, including all these 1 billion, trillion, zillion videos and stuff and text and all your work. But we have talked almost quite over an hour. And
I talked for 40 minutes actually, but yes.
Yeah, and so I would find it appropriate to somehow kind of either you raise whatever you are deducting from my account, or there will be an additional something or something like this. As far as I know, you're living on that, aren't you? Making a living on the Alexander technique, aren't you? Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So that's a very nice thought, Kai. And if you would like, then maybe do a bank transfer that you can set up, or we can do another Stripe. It's difficult to redo the Goldie Club without doing it all over again. So that you can tell me how much you want to give and sort it.
Or do I just have I mean, you deduct from my American Express card once a month.
Yes.
And you have the permission to do so, as far as I know.
I do.
Could I just switch that to and raise it so that there is an amount which I find appropriate then every month? Can I do that on my own?
No, it's difficult for you to raise the amount, but if you tell me how much, I can deduct it.
Yeah, then I'd add 10 euros to it, and then we'll be fine, okay?
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's really nice. Anyone who wants to do the same, that's very nice. I didn't ask for it, so I'm not insisting, but I really appreciate that offer from Kai. But as I say, I know some of you have fewer coins in your pocket, so if you haven't got the extra, that's fine too. To some extent, that's why I charge for the assessments. I mean, this is a bit of a trial process, and I'm thinking we're only spending half an hour. So, but it's gone on. We've gone on a little longer tonight. That's okay. It's been an interesting discussion. Okay, so leave it there for tonight. Thank you. Have fun going through things. David, you okay there?
Yes, yes. Thank you very much. That's
No
great.
problem. So yeah, have fun with your revisiony stuff and rereading, and see you in a month's time. Yeah.
Bye.
Ciao.
Thank you.